Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And for as fun as yesterday was, there was a lot of great gaming news. Make sure to go check that video out. But unfortunately, we have to come back to earth today because PlayStation and some of their studios have been hit by some bad news. Now, this isn't the type of stuff that I like to talk about, but it is still stuff that we need to talk about. And it got me to thinking about what exactly they're doing and also a concern that I currently have. Now, we do have some good news as well, though, because for anybody who's a fan of the Xbox 360 generation, that is my favorite generation of consoles. Well, we just got a massive breakthrough and we need to talk about it. I'll tell you this much right now. You can actually make a very real argument that PC gaming is the place to be right now, and this just kind of leans into that even more. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you so much for what you do, and I truly do appreciate you. Let's just go and get right into things, though, starting off with Metacritic's top publishers of 2024. Now, this is something that they do every year. They base it off of their average scores, and the winner for 2024 was much deserved. I think for anybody who paid attention last year, you probably know the winner here. So I'll go and give you a chance to guess it. I'll give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Yep, it went to Sega with their 82.9 rating. I mean, they launched Persona 3 Reload, Unicorn Overlord, Metaphor Refantasio, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and Sonic X Shadow Generations, all within a 12-month period. I mean, we're talking about 2 Game of the Year candidates and then 3 just top-tier quality games. So to say that their year was impressive is honestly an understatement in this case. This is one of the best years I've ever seen for any publisher, so really just an incredible job by them. But I do want to go ahead and applaud Capcom here as well. I've said various times on this channel that they've been the best publisher over the last 8 years or so, and they delivered once again in 2024. They ranked second place, which is even more impressive when you realize that they were first the year before. So Sega and Capcom are just firing on all cylinders right now. They focus on making fun games first and foremost. It feels like a lot of the game industry's kind of forgotten about that, but you can really see that in Sega and Capcom's end results. Here's a list of the full top 10, though. Some of the big names includes Sony at number 4, Square Enix got number 6. Of course, they had Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then Microsoft at number 9. Now, Nintendo, if you're wondering where they are, they ranked at number 22, which, I mean, it was a slower year for them. Now, speaking of Sega, in their earnings report, they admitted that they will release fewer new games in 2025, which, again, if you look at what they did last year, I don't think that should be overly surprising. Some slowdown is to be expected because you can't have an historical year every single year. But the good news is that they are investing more heavily into some of their key pillar franchises. Now, this includes Sonic, Yakuza, and the Persona series. They said that Atlus is an important studio for us to expand Japanese IPs overseas, and we think it is necessary to strengthen it. And the studios involved in the Sonic and Like a Dragon IPs are also short of staff, and we are looking to reinforce personnel through additional hiring and M&A. So they're going to reinforce those studios with even more talent, which I think is a smart path for them. Sonic seems to be back in a big way right now. The movies have been very successful, and the last 2 games sold several million apiece. Yakuza is by far one of the best single-player franchises the industry has to offer right now, and it's gaining more fans by the year. And then, when you look at the Persona series, this is a series that's really positioned itself as one of the premier JRPG franchises that ranks right up there with some of the all-time greats like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. I'm expecting some big games from all of these franchises over the next few years, including remasters. I'm fully expecting a Persona 4 remake. I'm expecting some Sonic remakes. I'm expecting Persona 6 here in the next few years, and I'm just expecting Yakuza to be Yakuza. The output from that franchise is just beyond crazy by this point. Now, we also got an update for The Last of Us Part 3. Neil Druckmann was asked about if there will be an eventual Part 3, and he seemingly deflated some of the hopium that fans have. He responded, I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more of Last of Us. This could be it, which, I mean, this is Naughty Dog for you. They've never really been known to settle on a singular franchise, and that's been a big part of their history. This is the same studio that moved on from Crash to Jak to Uncharted to The Last of Us, and now on to Intergalactic. And I think now is a good time for them to move on from The Last of Us. I mean, even if they wanted to make it, it would probably take them 10 to 15 years just to get it out because their main priority for the moment is Intergalactic. That's another game that is going to require a long development cycle. Plus, I also have my doubts that Part 3 could even replicate the success that they're looking for given just how polarizing Part 2 was. Its sales numbers were very front-loaded compared to Part 1, which sold much better over its lifetime. That's not a great sign for its word of mouth and just the reaction that fans had. So yeah, I think it's time to move on and to see if Naughty Dog can win fans back over with Intergalactic. Okay, so since we're already talking about PlayStation, we might as well just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. They've reportedly been hit by another wave of layoffs, and there's also another studio that worked closely with PlayStation that has more or less closed down. So we'll go and start off with that studio first, and this is for the Until Dawn remake studio, Ballistic Moon. Insider Gaming reported that only a handful of employees remained there, and one source told them that they've actually been effectively closed. Now, this isn't a full-on closure, but it sounds like Sony is no longer funding them for updates, which probably goes hand in hand with the expected results that the Until Dawn remake yielded them, and that's kind of my thing about everything that we're going to talk about today. None of these results surprise me even in the slightest. I think most people could have probably told you that this game isn't going to sell all that well. Until Dawn is not a very old game. It released last generation on the PlayStation 4, and fans weren't asking for a remake. Now, if they want to make a sequel, which I think they are, then okay, that's one thing. But nobody was asking for a remake, especially one that also had performance problems. This is just yet another poor decision by Herman Hulst as the PlayStation studio head. I don't think that this game should have ever even been greenlit in the first place. It was a bad idea. And there's so many more PlayStation remakes that they could have gone with that I think fans would have bought into. So it's always sad to see people lose their jobs. I hate talking about this stuff, but I can also make an argument that the top decision makers that are greenlighting these games need to have better foresight. And then you wouldn't have problems like this. And that goes doubly so for Sony's live service direction. Now, I've been cautioning this decision for years on the channel. I know a lot of fans have been skeptical about this decision, and now we're really just kind of seeing those decisions blow up in their face. You can see this report here, which reads, the PlayStation-owned studio Visual Arts was hit with fresh layoffs this week amid a further restructuring of Sony's United States game development operations. While some of the cuts included staff who had contributed to recently canceled projects like an upcoming live service game at Bend Studio, a source told Kotaku the layoffs were more widespread than that. So this isn't a team that a lot of people are aware of, but apparently they work closely with several PlayStation studios. And it's unfortunate to hear about, but this does kind of seem to be a part of Sony's new strategy. I mean, if you look at their past 2 years, Sony has canceled around 10 different live service projects, including Factions 2. They shut down Firewalk last year after the Concord debacle. They recently canceled Bluepoint's game and also Sony Ben's new game. I mean, these are all live service projects that they worked on for years, and they spent hundreds and hundreds of $millions on these games, and they have absolutely nothing to show for them. I mean, if you think about it, Sony's only live service success comes from a non-PlayStation studio, being Helldivers 2. So this live service initiative just hasn't worked out for them, and Sony's new leadership seems to be just hitting the reset button here. My guess is that they're probably going to go back and prioritize single-player games going forward. I mean, they'll still have live service games. They're not going to completely get rid of those, but it probably won't be their number one focus like we've seen these past 4 years, which was just a terrible decision. That was the main problem with it. They should have always been investing in live service, but it should not have been their number one priority. My only thing, though, just kind of going forward, is that I think they also need to address these long development cycles as well. You know, that's a big problem that we've seen across the entire game industry. This is not just a Sony problem. But even when I look at some of Sony's smaller studios like Media Molecule as one such example, I love this studio. Little Big Planet Studio, they've worked on Tearaway, games like that, but they just haven't had the output that they should have. They've only released one single brand new game within the last 12 years, and it was a flop. That was Dreams. So I hope Sony can streamline their development a little bit more going forward. Team Asobi and Insomniac have done a really good job, and they're great examples of pushing out new games. Now, one more thing before we go, because this is actually a little but also a massive story when you realize what this actually means for the future of gaming. So what's happening here is that an unofficial native PC port of the Xbox 360 version for Sonic Unleashed was recently released. Now, how many people are actually asking for a native PC port? Well, apparently enough to make this project happen. But the bigger part of this story is how this PC port came to be. The developers essentially created a tool that can turn Xbox 360 code into C++. In other words, this just created an endless amount of possibilities for any Xbox 360 game to get their own native PC port. That means games like Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon, Perfect Dark, Cameo, the Gears of War trilogy, and the list just goes on and on and on. The Xbox 360 has an amazing library of games, and any one of those could come to PC in the future through unofficial ports. Now, that's pretty amazing to think about, and all of these games could even receive enhancements, as we're seeing with Sonic Unleashed. That game can now run beyond 200 frames per second. So this is a breakthrough moment that even Microsoft hasn't been able to achieve yet. We know for a fact that they are going big into PC gaming. They've been doing that for a while, and we also know that they care a lot about their back catalog of games. Even still, though, they've yet to get their Xbox 360 games on PC. I, however, kind of wonder if they'll take a look at this and then reapproach that idea. There are rumors out there that their next Xbox will be a PC in disguise, so getting their Xbox 360 catalog on PC could actually be more important than really ever before. So who knows? Maybe this will be the start of Xbox 360 games on PC. At the bare minimum, we will likely see more of these unofficial Xbox 360 PC ports. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.